1791 was a year of immense upheaval and change. It was the second year of the French Revolution. The year that Thomas Paine published his radical Rights of Man, and the year the American Constitution and its Bill of Rights for all citizens was ratified by Congress and the first President of the United States, George Washington. William Wilberforce introduced his bill to end the Atlantic slave trade. William Blake was writing his mystical Songs of Experience, and James Boswell his Life of Johnson. But 1791 was also an incredible year in the history of music. In 1791, Mozart's life became shrouded in mystery and intrigue. The mythology surrounding Mozart is typified by his last meeting with Joseph Haydn in Vienna. Haydn had always championed Mozart, his former pupil, and the two men were good friends, often meeting here at the Esterhazy Keller. Before Haydn left Vienna for a tour of England, the two men dined together, and the young composer bade a poignant farewell with the words, "In all probability we are saying our last adieu in this life." Haydn, then aged 58, was naturally anxious about the long journey to London, and both of them thought he'd never make it back to Vienna in his lifetime. But in fact, it was Mozart, 25 years his junior, that died first. 1791 was the last year of his life. Incidents like his farewell to Haydn have fueled many myths about Mozart, in particular that he had a premonition of his own death. Because someone with such a massive talent died at the tragically young age of 35, the circumstances surrounding his death have been, perhaps understandably, romanticised. We seem not to be able to accept his loss simply as fate. The mythology of Mozart was brought to a worldwide audience by Peter Shaffer's play and film Amadeus. Excellent drama, dodgy history. Thanks largely to Amadeus, many people think Mozart ended up a wretched pauper, slung unceremoniously into a mass grave, forgotten and shunned, and plotted against by his deadly rival Salieri, who allegedly poisoned the young wunderkind. Most of the myths about Mozart's death can be traced to one single incident in 1791, the commissioning of his famous Requiem. The story goes, a mysterious hooded stranger called upon Mozart late one night and asked him to write a mass for the dead, a Requiem. The dark phantom never revealed his identity, nor whose death the mass was to commemorate. Mozart, terrified, yet fascinated, accepted the commission. He then fell ill and died without finishing the work. His supposed last words were, "I was writing this for myself." In 1791, Mozart was writing at the top of his form. There's a sense of effortlessness about the Requiem as one soaring, heartbreaking melody follows another. Mozart had written sacred music throughout his life, but the Requiem has a depth and sincerity to it, a weight to it, that is at times quite chilling. Within weeks of Mozart's death, rumours had already begun to circulate that he'd been murdered. Unfortunately for conspiracy lovers, we can now say quite confidently that this was not the case. Because Mozart wasn't writing his Requiem for his own death, but for that of a 20-year-old woman who died of typhoid fever on St. Valentine's Day, 1791. Her name was Anna von Walsegg, and she's lying here beneath my feet in the church of Schottwien, 50 miles from Vienna. Her husband, Count Walsegg, wanted to glorify her memory with a Requiem Mass, and being short of neither cash nor taste, he wanted it to be written by Mozart. Now, Walsegg had long been in the habit of commissioning other composers and passing their work off as his. That's why there was so much secrecy surrounding the commissioning of the Requiem. He had intended to conduct the piece himself on the first anniversary of his wife's death. But another unexpected death foiled his plan, Mozart's, and the work remained unfinished